What happens when a Hollywood icon known for grace, restraint, and quiet intelligence suddenly finds herself pushed into a corner on live television? What happens when a light-hearted daytime conversation turns into a moment so tense that even the studio lights seem to hold their breath? This is not just another celebrity interview. This is the moment Anne Hathaway walks onto The View expecting warmth, and instead collides with the sharp, unfiltered edge of Joy Behar. Before we go any further, if you love intense, cinematic celebrity stories that feel like you're inside the moment, make sure you subscribe to Live Narratives, hit that like button, and comment your first reaction right now. You don't want to miss what unfolds next. The applause starts the moment, and Hathaway steps onto the stage. It's loud, practiced, welcoming. The kind of applause that signals admiration, history, legacy. She smiles, polite, controlled, the same smile that's been analyzed on red carpets for decades. Inside, though, there's already a quiet calculation happening. She's done this countless times. Talk shows, hosts, jokes, tricky questions wrapped in friendly tones. She knows the rhythm. Joy Behar leans forward slightly at the table, her expression unreadable. A half smile, not warm, not cold, something in between. The cameras roll, millions watching, and sits, crosses her legs, folds her hands neatly in her lap. Calm, composed, professional. The first few minutes are exactly what everyone expects. Laughter, light banter, a mention of Anne's latest project. Joy's voice is casual, almost playful, but there's a sharpness underneath, like a blade hidden beneath silk. So, and Joy says, tilting her head, you've been in this industry a long time now. You've seen Hollywood change, or maybe not change enough. And nods. That's true. It's evolving, slowly, but Joy cuts in just slightly. Not rude. Just enough to establish control. Some people say actresses like you benefited from a system that wasn't exactly fair to everyone. Privilege, connections, image. Do you ever think about that? The air shifts. Anne's smile tightens for a fraction of a second. Barely noticeable, but it's there. A flicker. The audience murmurs softly. This wasn't on the cue cards. This isn't the usual promotional fluff. I think about responsibility a lot, Anne replies carefully. I think anyone in a position of visibility should. Joy raises an eyebrow. But responsibility after success is easy, isn't it? The camera cuts to Anne's face. Close up. Her eyes remain steady, but there's a new tension in her jaw. Inside, memories flash. Years of scrutiny. Accusations of being too perfect. Backlash for speeches that were meant to inspire, but instead sparked ridicule. She's been here before, just not quite like this. I wouldn't say it's easy, Anne says. Visibility comes with a cost. Joy chuckles softly. Does it? Because from where a lot of people sit, it looks pretty comfortable. A few nervous laughs ripple through the studio. Someone in the audience shifts in their seat. The other hosts exchange quick glances, but stay silent. This is Joy's lane now. And inhales slowly. You can almost feel it through the screen. She leans forward a bit, not aggressively, but intentionally. I don't think pain is a competition, she says. Just because someone appears comfortable doesn't mean they haven't paid their own price. Joy tilts her head again, sharper this time. But do you think you were ever held accountable in the same way others were? The question lands heavy. It's no longer theoretical. It's personal. And pauses. A real pause. The kind that makes producers nervous and viewers lean closer to their screens. She glances briefly toward the audience, then back at Joy. I've been held accountable my entire career, she says, her voice calm but firmer now. Sometimes fairly, sometimes not. The tension is unmistakable. The applause sign flashes, but no one claps. This isn't a moment for clapping. This is something else. Joy leans back in her chair, folding her arms. Some critics would say you've always been protected, that Hollywood forgives certain people faster. The word protected hangs in the air like smoke. Anne's eyes narrow just a touch, not in anger, but in focus. This is no longer an interview. This is a confrontation dressed in daylight television. I think, Anne says slowly, choosing each word, that Hollywood reflects society. And society decides who it wants to punish, forgive, or project onto. A low murmur spreads through the audience. This wasn't expected. This wasn't safe. Joy smiles again, but this time, it doesn't reach her eyes. That's a very polished answer. And meets her gaze. I've had a lot of practice being honest under pressure. For the first time, Joy doesn't immediately respond. The silence stretches. Cameras cut between faces. The other hosts remain still, unsure whether to jump in or stay out. Somewhere backstage, a producer grips a clipboard a little tighter and sits back, hands still folded, but the energy around her has changed. She's no longer just a guest. She's a participant in something raw, unscripted, and dangerously real. And this is only the beginning. The silence doesn't last long, but it feels endless. The kind of silence that makes viewers at home stop scrolling, stop breathing, stop blinking. The View has seen arguments before, but this is different. This isn't loud. It's controlled. Surgical. Joy Behar shifts in her chair, tapping her fingers lightly against the table. Honest under pressure, she repeats, her tone skeptical. Or media trained to survive it? A ripple of gasps moves through the audience. Someone audibly exhales. The camera finds Anne Hathaway again, and for a brief moment, the polished movie star facade cracks, not into anger, but into something deeper. Resolve. I didn't come here to survive anything, Anne Hathaway says quietly. I came here to have a conversation. Joy leans forward now, elbows on the table. Then, let's really have one. The words sound inviting, but the tone is anything but. You've spoken publicly about feminism, about equality, Joy continues. But some people feel that when it actually mattered, when others were being dragged, blacklisted, destroyed, you stayed quiet. There it is. The real question. Not about privilege. Not about image. About silence. The audience murmurs again, louder this time, and blinks once slowly. Inside her mind, years collapse into seconds. Press conferences, think pieces, tweets taken out of context, moments where speaking felt impossible because anything she said would be twisted. I didn't stay quiet, Anne replies. I chose my moments. Joy lets out a short laugh. Convenient moments? Anne straightens in her seat. Her voice doesn't rise, but it sharpens. Safe moments don't exist for women in this industry. Only calculated ones. That lands hard. One of the co-hosts shifts uncomfortably, glancing between them. The studio feels smaller now, tighter, like the walls have leaned in to listen. Joy tilts her head, studying, and, do you hear how that sounds, though? To people who didn't have the luxury of calculation. And nods slowly. I do. And I live with that weight. Her honesty throws Joy off balance, just slightly. Enough that she pauses again. But she recovers quickly. So, you admit you had more room to maneuver than others? And doesn't answer right away. She looks down at her hands, then back up. When she speaks, her eyes lock onto Joy's. I admit that visibility is a double-edged sword, she says. And I admit that I was afraid. Afraid of saying the wrong thing. Afraid of hurting the wrong people. Afraid of becoming the story instead of the issue. A hush falls over the studio. Fear. It's not something people expect Anne Hathaway to admit on live television. Not in this setting. Not like this. Joy's expression softens for just a fraction of a second, but then hardens again. Fear didn't stop other women. No, Anne agrees. And they're braver than I am. The audience reacts immediately. Applause breaks out, hesitant at first, then stronger. The sign flashes again, but this time it isn't needed. The emotion is real. Joy raises a hand slightly, signaling for quiet. But bravery without action doesn't change systems, she says. Words alone are often all women are allowed, and cuts in gently but firmly. That interruption changes everything. The crowd gasps. One of the co-hosts mouths, wow, under her breath. Joy's eyes narrow, not in anger, but in challenge. You're saying the system silenced you? Joy asks. I'm saying the system punishes unpredictability, and replies. especially when it comes from women who don't fit a certain narrative. Joy crosses her arms. And which narrative was that? The perfect one, and says. The agreeable one. The one that smiles and says thank you and never makes anyone uncomfortable. Her voice wavers for the first time, not with weakness, but with restrained emotion. And the moment you break that, she continues, you're called difficult, calculated,
Fake.
or worse, ungrateful. The audience erupts again, louder this time. This isn't daytime TV anymore. This feels like confession. Joy sits back, studying her. So this, she gestures vaguely between them, is you breaking that narrative? And nods once. Yes. The word is simple. Final. For a moment, Joy doesn't speak. The studio waits. Millions at home wait. Then Joy exhales. You know, she says slowly, people don't usually expect this kind of honesty from you. And smiles faintly. People don't usually ask me questions like these. Joy lets out a quiet laugh, this one real. Fair enough. But the tension doesn't disappear. It shifts, deepens. Let me ask you something else. Joy says, her voice lower now. Do you think audiences project their disappointments onto women like you because you represent something they can't reach? And considers this. Really considers it. I think, she says, that we all project. But women in public spaces become screens for collective frustration. Joy nods slowly. And you're okay carrying that? And shakes her head.
No.
But I'm done pretending it doesn't hurt. The words hang heavy. The audience is completely silent now, hanging on every syllable. Joy looks down at her notes, then back up. This is getting uncomfortable, she admits, and meets her gaze. Growth usually is. A beat. Joy smiles, tight but genuine. You're not wrong. The camera pulls back, capturing the table, the audience, the charged air. Producers are likely screaming in headsets right now, but no one interrupts. They can't.
Not now.
Because whatever this has become, it's no longer controlled. And as the segment edges closer to something neither woman can fully pull back from, one thing is clear. This conversation is about to cross a line neither of them prepared for. The energy in the studio has shifted. What began as a carefully orchestrated promotional segment has become a slow-burning, tense collision between intent and perception. And Hathaway sits poised, but the subtle tightening in her shoulders signals a rising storm. Joy Behar, sharp and probing, leans in, sensing the opening to push further, because live television rewards those willing to ignite sparks. And Joy begins, her voice almost casual. Let's talk about choices. Some people say your career has been carefully curated. Every role, every appearance, every statement, it's all calculated. And exhales softly, her hands tightening in her lap. Every actor makes choices, she replies evenly. Some public, some private. That's part of navigating this industry. Joy leans forward, eyebrows raised. But don't you see how that can come across as inauthentic? Her tone isn't hostile. It's sharper, incisive, designed to unsettle. The audience murmurs. Cameras cut to viewers at home, eyes widening. Anne's gaze flickers briefly to the co-hosts. They sit frozen, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of the escalating tension. Then back to Joy. I see how it can appear that way, and responds, her voice steady, but carrying an edge. Appearances are a fragile thing. And yes, sometimes the narrative overshadows the person. Joy tilts her head, the smile returning, a touch forced, sharp. Narratives can be powerful, she says. But people talk and they talk about what you don't say, about what you don't do. Do you ever feel the pressure to conform to that image? And leans forward slightly, her calm demeanor breaking just enough to reveal the fire underneath. Of course, she says, voice low and deliberate. But living under constant scrutiny doesn't leave room for perfection. It leaves room for mistakes, for judgment, for reinterpretation of everything you do. A tense silence fills the room. Even the audience, trained to applaud at manufactured highs, holds its breath. This isn't entertainment anymore. It's exposure. Vulnerability, made visible. Joy narrows her eyes. You've talked about responsibility before, about holding power accountable. But in real terms, when things go wrong in Hollywood, when careers are ruined, how often have you stepped up? Anne's lips tighten. She leans back, collecting herself. I've done what I could when I could. But accountability isn't always public. It isn't always performative. It's personal, difficult, and often invisible. The audience reacts. Some nod in recognition. Others murmur quietly, captivated by the candidness. Joy studies, and for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she leans back, her tone softening, though still laced with tension. It's just when people see someone like you, they assume everything came easy. Anne's eyes flare with controlled intensity. Everything didn't come easy. No one's life is as simple as it looks on screen or in magazines. Success is layered with struggle, doubt, and fear. And that's what most people don't see. The cameras cut to a close-up of Joy, her smile now almost absent. The game has changed. The conversation is no longer about celebrity trivia or harmless anecdotes. It's about truth, perception, and the invisible cost of public life. Joy leans forward, elbows on the table, voice lower, more intense. So, when critics say you're privileged, that your fame shields you, that the system has favored you, what do you say? And meets her gaze directly, her tone unwavering. I say they're partially right. Privilege exists. Opportunities exist. But privilege also comes with its own forms of pain, scrutiny, expectation, isolation. It doesn't cancel hardship, it transforms it. A hush falls over the studio once again. The co-hosts exchange glances. The live audience is tense, hanging on every syllable. Producers glance at one another, silently panicking but powerless to intervene. Joy exhales slowly, the smile returning but brittle, calculated. You're saying even success is complicated. And nods.
Exactly.
And if anyone believes otherwise, they haven't truly lived in the public eye. The energy between them is electric. Neither is backing down. Neither is yielding. Each word, each pause, each glance carries weight, and the studio feels smaller, tighter, almost suffocating. Then, as if on cue, Joy leans forward again, her voice almost a whisper now, deliberate and sharp. And let me ask you, honestly, do you feel misunderstood? Anne's eyes meet hers directly. The pause stretches, loaded with tension. The answer is simple, but the delivery is profound. More than anyone will ever know. The audience gasps collectively, a mixture of empathy and shock. Cameras panned across the crowd, some faces reddened with emotion, some frozen in stunned disbelief. The co-hosts exchange rapid, subtle gestures. The tension is palpable, it's alive, vibrating through every inch of the studio. Joy's smile falters, just slightly. There's admiration there, buried beneath the probing intensity. And yet here you are, she says, voice soft but cutting. Still standing, still speaking. And leans back, a faint smile on her lips, calm but resolute. Because I have to. Because silence isn't an option for anyone who wants to be heard. The audience applauds now, louder, some even standing. But it's not the standard clap of daytime TV. It's recognition, respect,
Shock.
a mix of awe and tension that lingers in the air. Joy sits back, crossing her arms, her expression thoughtful. You've certainly changed the tone of this conversation, she admits. Anne's gaze drifts briefly toward the audience, then back at Joy. I think it's time the tone changed. And with that, the room feels electric, charged with a tension that promises even greater revelations are coming. What started as a simple talk show segment has transformed into something far more intense, raw, and unforgettable. The viewers at home lean in, hearts racing, realizing this is only the middle, only the beginning of the storm that neither Anne Hathaway nor Joy Behar could have fully predicted. The tension has grown thicker now, almost tangible. The studio lights seem harsher, casting sharper shadows across the polished table of the view. The audience sits on the edge of their seats, unsure whether to gasp, cheer, or remain silent. And Hathaway's posture remains impeccable, but there's a subtle shift, her fingers tapping lightly against her folded hands, a rhythm betraying the storm behind her calm exterior. Joy Behar leans forward, a glint of challenge in her eyes, sensing the precise moment to escalate. You've spoken about accountability. Joy begins, voice low, measured, but piercing. But the public isn't always forgiving, is it? Especially when the media spins your every move into a story of perfection or failure. And inhales, the faintest crease forming on her brow. The public doesn't always know what to forgive, she says softly. And often, the media gives them little context. People see headlines, sound bites, and form judgments without ever hearing the nuance. Joy smirks slightly, leaning closer. And that nuance, does it excuse the silence of those who should speak? The voices that could have mattered. Anne's gaze sharpens. This is the pivot point, where the conversation becomes personal, where tension is no longer abstract. Speaking isn't easy, she says, especially when every word you utter is dissected, ridiculed, or weaponized. Visibility doesn't protect you, it exposes you. A subtle murmur runs through the audience. The air feels charged, almost electric. The co-hosts exchange fleeting glances, sensing that the controlled environment they intended has slipped beyond their grasp. Joy folds her hands together, leaning back slightly, eyes never leaving Anne. But fame is a choice, she says quietly, almost a whisper. You chose the spotlight. Isn't it fair that it comes with consequences? Anne tilts her head slightly, a half smile playing on her lips, but her eyes blaze with intensity. I didn't choose the consequences, she says firmly. I chose to work, to create, to act. The consequences, the judgment, the scrutiny, the constant evaluation, those were given, not chosen. And surviving them isn't a privilege. It's a necessity. The audience shifts, some leaning forward, captivated. There's tension in the air that goes beyond television. It's palpable, intimate, almost uncomfortable. This is not a typical celebrity interview. This is a duel of truths. Joy's voice lowers further, a deliberate challenge in each word. So, what you're saying is, everyone assumes your life is perfect because you perform well publicly, but inside it's different. And nods. Her composure is intact, but the fire in her voice makes it impossible to ignore.
Exactly.
It's complicated, messy, and deeply human. You can't reduce it to a headline or a meme. There's pain behind every choice, even the ones that appear effortless. Joy leans back slightly, eyes narrowing, the edge of her humor gone now, replaced with respect. And yet, here you are on live television, revealing a side most people never see. Isn't that risky? And meets her gaze directly. Vulnerability always is. But avoiding it doesn't make you stronger. It makes you invisible. A hush falls over the studio. The other hosts remain silent, mesmerized, unsure whether to intervene or allow the confrontation to continue. Producers behind the cameras are probably gripping their headsets, but the moment is unstoppable. Joy smiles faintly, the tension in her posture easing slightly, but the challenge remains. So, you've survived this scrutiny, this judgment, the system. What keeps you going? And pauses, her eyes glinting with determination. Purpose. The work. The responsibility to speak, when I can, in ways that matter. Silence is a luxury no one should afford themselves, but fear is something everyone feels. The audience responds with a mix of awe and empathy. Some are visibly moved, others whisper to each other, as though witnessing a rare, unfiltered human exchange. Cameras capture every nuance, the subtle shift in Anne's expression, the intensity in Joy's gaze, the rapt attention of the crowd. Joy leans forward once more, her voice soft, reflective. So, what happens when the world projects its expectations onto you, Anne Hathaway? When everyone wants the perfect answer, the perfect smile, the perfect persona? Anne's jaw tightens slightly, but she does not falter. Then you remind them you are not a projection. You are a person, a flawed human alive. A murmur of approval ripples through the audience. Some clap, others sit in stunned silence. This is more than a celebrity interview. It's an intimate revelation on a public stage, raw and unfiltered. Joy exhales, a faint chuckle escaping. I've interviewed countless stars over the years. Rarely does someone turn the lens back on the system itself and on themselves with this kind of honesty. And leans back, the faintest smile crossing her face. Honesty isn't always comfortable, but it's necessary. The air between them hums with intensity, the kind that doesn't dissipate easily. The cameras panned across the audience, capturing wide-eyed reactions, whispered exclamations, and the quiet awe of viewers watching at home. This segment has already transcended expectations. And as Anne Hathaway sits, poised yet vulnerable, and Joy Behar watches with a mixture of challenge and admiration, one thing is clear. The conversation has reached a point of no return. Every word, every glance, every pause carries weight, and the drama, raw and real, is only escalating. The storm is here, and neither woman shows any sign of backing down. The studio is electric, the tension now crackling like a live wire. Every word exchanged between Anne Hathaway and Joy Behar has layered itself into a crescendo of raw emotion, public scrutiny, and unflinching honesty. The audience sits in stunned silence, their collective breath caught somewhere between awe and disbelief. Cameras panned across their faces, capturing everything: the widened eyes, the murmured whispers, the subtle nods of recognition. This isn't just daytime television anymore. It's an unfolding drama, a rare glimpse into the vulnerabilities and complexities behind celebrity life. Joy Behar leans back slightly, crossing her arms, eyes still fixed on Anne. "You've faced scrutiny, judgment, and expectation for decades," she says softly, almost reverent. "And yet, here you are unflinching, willing to confront the narratives about yourself and the system itself." And Hathaway meets her gaze steadily, a calm intensity radiating from her. "It's not about defiance," she replies. "It's about truth. About acknowledging that life in the public eye is complicated, that visibility comes with burdens, and that silence isn't always safe or acceptable." The co-hosts remain silent, transfixed. The audience begins murmuring again, slowly at first, then rising into applause, not the polite, staged clapping of daytime TV, but a genuine, heartfelt recognition of courage and honesty.
Some viewers stand.
Some whisper to their neighbors, clearly moved by what they've just witnessed. Cameras catch every reaction, every subtle display of emotion. Joy tilts her head, her sharp edge softened now into a rare blend of respect and curiosity. "You've given us something we don't usually see on live television," she admits. "A window into the cost of fame and the human behind the image. I think people at home will be talking about this for weeks." And allows herself a small smile, but there's a weight behind it, a mix of relief, exhaustion, and quiet triumph. I hope they do, because it's time we start acknowledging the humanity behind the celebrity, instead of just the performance. The studio audience erupts into louder applause. The tension that had gripped the room for the last hour begins to release, replaced by a sense of catharsis. The other co-hosts smile, nodding in acknowledgement, recognizing that this is a segment that will live on in memory and in social media feeds for months to come. As the cameras pull back for a wide shot of the entire set, the air still hums with electricity. Social media feeds are already lighting up with reactions, headlines, tweets, Instagram stories, TikToks, all buzzing with clips of the most intense moments. Clips of Anne's firm responses, her vulnerability, her candid acknowledgement of fear and expectation are being shared rapidly. Comment sections are exploding, some praising her honesty, some debating her perspective, some defending her against harsh critics. Joy Behar breaks the silence with a softer, almost reflective comment. "I think what makes moments like this unforgettable is the courage it takes to speak honestly under pressure. And you've reminded all of us why authenticity matters, even when it's uncomfortable." And nods, looking around the room with a composed grace. "Thank you. And thank you to the audience for witnessing it. not just for applause, but for reflection. Conversations like these aren't easy, but they're necessary. The applause rises again, filling the studio with a sense of closure, but not resolution. Because the story continues beyond these walls. Clips are already trending worldwide, journalists dissecting every word, media outlets debating every nuance, and fans flooding social media with opinions and emotional responses. The conversation has transcended television, entering the broader cultural discourse. As the segment winds down and stands gracefully, waving to the audience with a final, sincere smile, Joy Behar rises as well, offering a nod of respect, a silent acknowledgement that this wasn't just an interview, it was a confrontation of truths. Cameras capture the lingering energy, the echoes of tension, honesty, and courage reverberating through every frame. And now, viewers at home are left with questions, reactions, and reflections. What did Anne Hathaway reveal about fame, responsibility, and personal struggle that we rarely see? How do Joy Behar's challenges reflect the public's demand for accountability? This is the kind of conversation that sparks debate, empathy, and insight long after the credits roll. So, here's your chance to be part of it. Share your thoughts in the comments. Were you surprised by Anne's honesty? Did you feel the tension in the studio as if you were there? And don't forget to subscribe to Live Narratives for more explosive, dramatic, and unforgettable stories from the world of Hollywood. Moments like this don't happen every day, but when they do, you want to be watching. The screen fades out slowly, the applause echoing, leaving the audience, both in the studio and at home, stunned, reflective, and captivated. This was more than a talk show segment. It was a raw, cinematic moment that will be talked about, analyzed, and remembered for a long time. And one thing is certain, in the collision of Anne Hathaway's truth and Joy Behar's challenge, live television has never felt so real, so human, and so unforgettable.